to swear again, but you know. But that's it, though. I mean, part of it is that you have to understand what is the motivation from the other folks, right? Go ahead. Yeah.
So I don't care so much about the sucky recruiters because they're pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
How do you
find decent?
Ones who you think that are better than sucky are actually good?
So the way to find a good search firm or consulting firm is to ask all of your friends who have they had a decent relationship with, right? It's that most of us don't ask, and because you guys are getting hounded now with 7 phone calls in a week, right? And now you can't tell apart the good ones from the bad ones. Ask your friends who they've had an experience with, right? It's kind of like finding an attorney. It's kind of, oh, hey, look at that. It's kind of like finding an attorney. It's kind of like finding a doctor. It's like whatever it might be. Get a referral from somebody and say, hey, you know, who did you have a good relationship with? Understand, too, that most of the corporate recruiter or HR folks are under a lot of stress. While I tend to badger my corporate side of the fence pretty hard sometimes, they have a really crappy job if you think about it, right? So they have meetings upon meetings upon meetings. They may be recruiting for skill sets, not of their fault, that they don't know much about, right? Because they could be doing IT, they could be marketing, they could be doing finance, they could be doing all these different things, and you can't be a master of all of those. Then think about the number of candidates that they might be talking to with all the positions. So we've been talking a lot about the candidate experience over the last 2 years in the HR world. And we're saying that most companies really blow at getting back to folks, right? You respond to HR, recruiter at, you never get a response. And it's really, really frustrating for you guys. And it is. Like, I'm on your side. But do keep in the back of your mind, though, these people aren't evil. It's that they too, post-recession, are dealing with a smaller team than they had before. Which means if they used to have a team of 9, they now have a team of 5, and they lost their admin. So to speak on behalf of my corporate recruiter HR friends for a moment, just think about that their job is kind of a difficult one right now, too.
It seems like getting more and more contacts from people that just are you guys outsourcing a lot of your search to India and other places? Because
there's a lot of it going on. So
I get a lot of stuff, and it's like, okay, you found a resume from 8 years ago that or 10 years ago that I'm no longer doing any of that.
Yep.
But it seems like if you could spell the word network, oh God, there's a guy who got the word network in his resume.
Yeah.
They send me crap.
So
at least 2 or 3 job things posted me from Mahish. That's like I have nothing. This is crap I would never look at.
So part of the problem is that, again, our industry, whether it's the search or the corporate side, I mean, there's a big company downtown who all of their sourcing is done in India. And so we have some English grammar translation issues going on. If you were the company, you would be doing this too. If you looked at the cost savings to it, if you look at the PR nightmare that you're creating for yourself, or you're damaging your reputation in the tech community, then you wouldn't be doing it. Unfortunately, you can tell who's making that decision, though. It's not the recruiter HR folks. It's somebody in finance or somebody with a VP title who's just looking at, but we can save X dollars by doing it this way.
What would you call the earmarks of a good recruiter? What do you consider to be a good recruiter?
Oh, boy. I swear I don't think I've ever been asked that question. What's the makings of a good recruiter? Yeah, and I'm...
No, I mean, how would I know what I want, but what would be kind of like the board standards I would expect from a good recruiter?
I would suggest that you want to get on the phone with somebody who actually is going to ask you questions about what do you want, right? We're normally saying, here's what we want, here's what we have, are you that person? It makes it rather transactional, but it's anybody who wants to create a relationship with you, anyone who wants to sit to talk to you about what is your path, or what do you want to be doing 6 months or a year from now, is someone who's probably someone you want to talk to. Jonathan, what would be yours? Like, what's been your experience?
The recruiter that actually wants to meet with you before they try to pitch you something. I've had conversations where a recruiter just found your resume. I don't have a job for you, but I actually want to sit down and have coffee with you just to get to know who you are before I start pushing you on people.
By the way, are any of you guys in witness protection? Yes, ma'am.
I've had that.
Because I am going to take a photo, so if you are, duck.
I've had that experience too, where they seem interested and they want to meet with me with coffee for first, and they're really excited about what I can do. And the resumes they get me are, oh, you've got network in your resume, so you want to be a network administrator. I did that 10 years ago. I don't want to. That's not what I want right now. So I give them, this is what I want. Here's my current job description. Here's some copies of some of the jobs that I applied for. And they still don't get it because a lot of people who are IT headhunters don't understand IT.
Now pause for that. If you're out in the hallway, just walk in, sit in the front. Just come in. We'll find a spot.
So and so it's not just language barriers.
So,
It's the people that have
so here's the disclaimer that I need to give you that I give everybody else. And Jonathan and I have had a conversation that made him laugh. And here's how it goes. So I graduated from the University of Minnesota with a political science degree, which means I, after 15 years, by the way, I incorporated myself 15 years ago Wednesday. So it's, oh man. And I've been going through a bit of, this is now version 4 of me. Now, so I am now back on my own after doing some consulting contracting side of the IT world for a couple of years and realized that I'm more suited for full-time perm search type stuff, working much more now with the startups and the tech companies in town. But I will tell you, I do not have a tech background. So what I say to my clients is, I know enough now to really jack up your system, but I can't fix it. Which is to say, I had a conversation, and it wasn't with Jonathan the other day. I had a conversation with a PHP person a week ago, and about 12 minutes in the conversation, I knew that this person could do the job. And I started tweeting, and I started looking at a YouTube video that I put on Facebook, because this person had some stuff that they had to get out of their system about what they did. But I already knew they could do the job, though. Right? So there are a lot of IT recruiters, though, who do not know the technology part. But do they then ask you all the questions that are important to you, though, about your career path? Where do you want to work? Why are you motivated? What's your thing? If they can't speak to the technology part, and they don't, ooh, that was the first swear word I skipped, and they don't give a crap about you, there are your 2 signs that maybe you want to work with somebody else.
Well, this person in particular might really care about finding a job, but they just can't grasp what to do.
And that happens to, and to be honest with you, it happens to me still 15 years later. It's, the hard part is that there's no barrier to entry in my business. So when the recession happened and the mortgage industry went in the tank, a lot of mortgage folks came and started being recruiters, right? It's, can you find someone who has a reputation? Like I have one. Sometimes it's that I curse too much, right? If you follow me on Twitter or whatever, it's that I post a lot of moon and sunset photos lately, because that's kind of like my therapy lately. I go take a lot of walks, it seems. Like, no joke.
But is it also not you keeping up that relationship with the recruiter, not just them keeping the relationship?
Yeah, so like,
Bi-directional.
let's pause on this for a minute. Let me whip through some of these quick. Okay, that's why I think I'm cool.
I can see it.
Oh wait, you know what? Actually, I am told that I've been doing a really crappy job at marketing myself lately. So that's it. So I've been recruiting for 15 years. By the way, it's not 16. It should be 15 plus. Text or an error on my part. So I do a lot of speaking locally and nationally on recruiter and HR things. And my thing is that I think that there's a lot of really crappy career advice that gets given out. I think it's very one-sided sometimes. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this again today. And I think this is this is the 5th year now I've done this.
What was that Minnesota Recruiters Board thing?
So there's I truly accidentally started a recruiter group 5 years ago. A bunch of us went together for lunch that turned into a 127 person event that now turned into a 17 event. It's the largest recruiter group in the Midwest. I actually am not doing it anymore because it took my sanity away from me. But we did have events at Best Buy and General Mills. We do it 4 times a year. So it's just a group for recruiter HR folks. We bring in folks from around the country to teach stuff. This always freaks people out. Hopefully it won't happen to anybody today. But this idea for this session is this. If something bad happened to you or to your company this weekend, come Monday morning, are you ready for what's next? Or you've got a salary review coming up in 2 weeks. And if you're like most folks, you wait 363 days until you prepare for it. Right? And then it's 2 days before your review or 2 days before you're going to ask for a raise. And you're like, oh, crap. I don't even know where to start. So that's kind of what I wanted to get through some of this stuff. By the way, so I'm a huge Gopher football fan. Some of you are aware of this, which means I'm in therapy, too, for that. But I had a guy, an IT director, 4 years ago, send me an email from that email address. And here's where I will cuss for the first time. No shit. And then he was pissed that I wouldn't pass him on to my client, who also was a University of Minnesota grad and was in the process, had his MBA, and was in law school at the U. And he thought that I was a jerk because I wouldn't pass him on. Now, I actually did pass him on just the email address because the VP said, oh, hell no, I would never talk to such a person who would be so stupid. But think about your email address for a minute. I'm guessing a third of you in this room are offenders, though. It's probably way too casual. It probably doesn't do a good job at representing who you are. Most folks, I would suggest putting your social media icons in the footer of your email, right? because you never know who your email gets forwarded on to, gets forwarded on to, gets forwarded on to. So, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, if some of us have different sort of settings for that. How many of you have not been narcissistic in the last 30 days and have not Googled yourself? Oh, it's way more than I was expecting. So go Google yourself and figure out what the VP of IT, what I am going to find, what is the HR person going to find about you online, right? So there was a study a couple of years ago, 85% of recruiter and HR folks admitted that they go online to find you, right? And this was in the proactive sense, to source and recruit. I think the number is just as high, so we can find out crap about you online too. Right? So if there is that stuff that you would wish weren't found by somebody, at least know what's out there ahead of time so you can maybe account for it. Okay, my Facebook profile is completely public. You can look at it right now if you'd like. You will see photos of me with a beer in my hand at the Gopher football tailgate, because sometimes you have to have 2 beers before you watch the game. I guarantee you that there are sometimes more beers after that before a game, but you never see that photo though. Right? So it's the idea of you can have a personal life, right? I don't want you to be a bunch of IT automatrons. We don't do anything all day, but we just code. Like, really, you all have jobs and lives. But just again, think about the stupid stuff that might be out there. What's your one online destination that everybody's going to find you? For most of you, it's your LinkedIn profile. For those of you who have a blog, that's cool. I don't care what it is. But think about, like, where do you start? Where do you send people out to? Okay? I'm going to whip through this part. Just make it so that your headline, people actually know who you are. It's going to do 2 things, though. It's going to increase the amount of folks who are going to contact you on LinkedIn. That might be the bad news. The good news is that if you're specific enough, it might whittle down the bunch of spam that you're getting. Double-edged sword. Okay, here's the deal, though. If you're not on LinkedIn and you're not using it, whether it's for your full-time job, and you could be happy in your full-time job and not be looking. But really, think about your network. Again, we don't think about networking until the crap hits the fan, and then it's a little too late. So think about an updated LinkedIn profile. I have a couple other slides to whip through. Just tell a story in your summary section. Who are you? What do you do? Think about in your experience section, right? It's your resume. And it can be a lot longer than your resume. I joke about this. I did it the other day, too. I would love one day to get 7 of my HR friends around a round table with 3 bottles of wine and that stupid video camera and say 1-page resume or 2, or 2-page resume or 3, functional or chronological resume, right? I'd have content for a month, 3 months, right? Because you'd have 7 people with these differing sort of thoughts on what they think. But tell a story. Here's the thing. If you're an Oracle DBA, make sure you have Oracle Database Administrator also. I may search for one, but not for the other. Right? So I always tell my HR friends, make sure that you have HR and human resources in your summary, in your section, or in your experience section. I will make these slides available, by the way. I'll post them on SlideShare later today. You may be trying to find other SQL Server DBAs to network with. You may be trying to find someone else who's a Java consultant because maybe you can swap business with each other, develop a relationship online, right? So use the advanced search function on LinkedIn to find folks who are like you. But for those of you who are doing a job search, right, then again, you're looking for, I'll add it. I'll get rid of one of those. But like, you need to search for VP of IT, Vice President of Information Technology, whatever it might be. Okay? But think about, where do you want to be in a year? You may totally dig the company that you're at right now, but go, my career path's done here in a year. Or someone may say it for you that your career path is done here. Right? But know who's in town. LinkedIn groups. Here's the bad news, right? My recruiter HR friends are spamming, okay, now there's a swear word skipped, crap out of these groups right now, and it sucks. Again, though, it's kind of like the cost of doing business. I mean, there is no really greater, I would suggest, there isn't really a greater network out there than to use LinkedIn. And unfortunately, with it comes some bugs or some spam. Lots of companies have LinkedIn pages, right? I would suggest that if you want to send a really strong signal to a company you're interested in them, follow their company. Because if the recruiter or HR team is worth anything, they're checking out their company page to see who's following them. So if you want to do a silent job search, this is one way to start going about doing it. Go like the 20 web development shops in town you think you might want to go work at. I guarantee you 5 or 6 of them will call you within a week. And if they don't, well, they suck. So Twitter's my friend. If I were you, I would be going through the Twitter stream today to figure out who is doing who is using the hashtag MinneBar. I've already followed about 25 people to say that I didn't know. None of them have followed me back, of course, because I'm a recruiter, so. They will one day. But the idea is it's a great way to be able to share information. And I know most of you know that, so I'll skip the rest of that part. I do have on my Twitter account different sort of, the different lists. There are HR List 1, HR List 2, corporate recruiter, HR, search firm, consulting firm recruiters in Minneapolis, St. Paul. There's between the two of them, there's about 650. They're not all current. They're not all using Twitter. But it does include like Super Value Careers. It does include like the seven folks at Buffalo Wild Wings. So if you want to start following recruiter HR folks, because maybe, again, you want to start and create a relationship with them now for what might happen down the road, those are some links for you. Facebook, whatever your settings are, I don't care. I would suggest that you want to make your education and work section public. It's just the idea, again, of you're treating your Facebook profile a bit like a resume. Copy and paste in the proper sections, like from LinkedIn if you want to. I also would guess, for those of you who are consultants in the room, do your friends even know that you're an IT consultant? Do they know that you're a PHP person, that you do Java, whatever it is? Guessing in most cases they don't. So some ideas on some things to put out for your status updates, and this includes Facebook. And it could be, my contract is ending in 6 weeks. I'm looking for my next .NET gig. Who do you know? Right? Build that pipeline. What happens if the next gig doesn't come through? I sound really uptight today. I'm hearing myself talking like this, and I'm sorry. But I've been uptight about this lately. Best Buy laid off. Super Value laid off. The Nerdery had a few that got let go. Do not think that just because you're in IT that you're like immune to crappy things happening. The good news is it shouldn't take you long to find your next job. But don't you want to be in a position, though, where you can pick your next job versus having to take your next job that someone puts you out for? And this is about creating options for yourselves. Think about your online profiles. Like, would you call you? Would you recruit you? Would you network with you? Toby and Ian had a great session earlier about freelancing, and I brought it up. If you're a consultant, a freelancer, or whatever, and you're a designer, and your own web page sucks. Okay, by the way, so if you go to mnheadhunter.com, my blog sucks right now, so I'm having also one of those issues like where I'm giving other people advice, but I'm like the cobbler with a kid in his shoes, right? My kids' shoes, if I had kids, suck. My blog right now needs a lot of work, but I'm also in this rebranding process. But if you are in consulting, if you are in the contracting part, if you are doing freelance work, think about when the referral comes to your stuff, because now they don't know you, what are they going to find? And even again, it could just be your LinkedIn profile. For the love of whoever you believe in.
But all the jobs are looking for rock stars.
I would say, how do I say that? If a company is looking for a rock star, you don't want to work there either.
Well, if you have to call yourself a ninja or a rock star, I think you've already failed.
I would suggest you're right, that if you have to call yourself one, but I bet there's at least one offender in here somewhere. I would bet you here at MinneBar, with 1,000, 1,200 people that registered, if you even say 1% of the folks have misidentified themselves, there are probably 15 ninjas walking around here today. We just don't know it.
You can't see them.
You can't tell that they're, right? They could be cloaked. They could be like dressed amongst us. We don't know.
They look just like everybody else.
But I'm telling you, there are 15 ninjas, gurus, warriors, and Jedis walking around today, because there are 15 fools running around here today. Just play the odds. So please, if you really are an expert or an authority, then I don't care. But I'm guessing you've got publications, you've got projects, you've got content where you can say, I am an expert in this, because you've actually done it for more than 6 weeks, right? You've been doing it for 10 years. You've been doing it for 20 years. In that case, do it. I suffer from something that I've been joking about, but it's actually been kind of serious lately. I am an introvert by nature. At the end of this day, I swear this is true. Yesterday afternoon, I went grocery shopping. I went to the Timberwolves game last night instead of going to the party last night. By the time I get out of here tonight, I don't want to talk to anybody until Monday afternoon. Because I always joke about how my introverted soul has been bruised by being here today, but it's true. Here's something else. I truly suffer from Minnesota nice, passive-aggressive, Lutheran upbringing, which says I suck at promoting myself. I put a lot of content out, and I hope that people like it and read it and will remember that I'm a nice guy. But I've done a really, and I'll say it, I've really done a shitty job the last 3 years promoting myself. And it has hurt my business. And it has hurt, I could be further along even after 15 years than I am if I had decided to actually embrace this Minnesota Headhunter brand. So all my friends now are like, so I actually incorporated as a part of this version 4 thing, Minnesota Headhunter LLC is what I'm going by, because this is what everybody knows me as. Nobody can spell or pronounce DeBeddings. Blessing and curse. Right? I own Paul DeBeddings Online. There's a 7-year-old third cousin that maybe in 15 years I'm going to have to battle for our name on. Right? But everybody knows me as this thing, but I don't promote it. And I'm a fool. Seriously. There's now a dude in town that if you search for Minnesota Headhunter or Minnesota IT jobs, he's now passed me up, and I'm pissed. He is literally doing what I've done.
Is he here?
No.
What's his name?
He could be a ninja.
Maybe that's why.
He could be sitting here right now, and I wouldn't know it. Stop waiting for people to find you. You could have these really cool websites, these really cool online profiles. You're now relying on somebody to find you? Really? Like, this is again the part about being a little bit more aggressive. And you could be putting on your LinkedIn profile that we're working on this really cool .NET project at work and it's going to kick ass. Because it's going to remind people that you're a .NET developer, right? Or, again, depending on what you can and can't say about the work that you're doing, if you're a freelancer, you're not putting out that this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm doing. I will tell you that I started doing this now, since the first of the year. You know, there's a company I just started working with over the last 2 weeks called 4Cubed. 4 spelled out cubed. We're looking for a couple of Ruby developers. I will today publish the job description for the first time. And I'm tweeting out, hey, I'm meeting with Chris and the team over at 4Cubed about their Ruby developer position. And I'll do that about whoever I'm meeting with, because I'm trying to promote my clients. It's also reminding folks that I'm an IT recruiter. I've been on Twitter for, what, 4 years, and I'm only just now doing this. Right? So lately, I am like the poster child for what not to do. So don't do what I've done. Don't be passive aggressive. Don't wait for people to call you up. Make it so that you have your pipeline ready to go. Find the cool kids who are here today. If you're at like the a week ago, yesterday, we had the social media breakfast over in St. Paul. And that was like a freaking who's who of who were the cool kids in town that day. Because there were really some really solid people. They had a panel of Lisa Grimm, Eric Hansen, and oh, for the love of, what's her name? Oh, and that's on camera too.
Jen Kane.
Jen Kane, thank you. And they had a great conversation about what was going on in social media marketing. And the YouTube video will probably be up sometime in the next week. Go look at that. There was a lot of awesome content. But there were nearly 250 of us in the room that day. I would go back. It might be hard now, right, because Twitter only saves the tweets for a week. But I would try to start following some of these hashtags. So that one is SMBMSP. So for Social Media Breakfast, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Go for football fan again, right? Look, I get that networking stinks, and it's awkward, and it's weird. And get over it. That's my simple pitch on that. Okay, again, stop spamming people. Okay, this will get somebody to laugh. So networking job search is like dating, right? You don't know when to call somebody back. What am I supposed to wear to the interview? What time do I show up? When do I call them back? Is it the next day? Is it a text? Is it an email? Is it 3 days later? No wonder this stuff is difficult, right? So I mean this to say to be funny, but it is this idea, though, of, look, as potential employees, we have baggage, but you know what? Employers have baggage, too. So think about that when you're going through this. Do you really want to work there? Just like they're saying, do we really want you to work here? There's a search firm dude on the West Coast who has an idea of, he's got a very simple idea of whether I think this person's good for my client or not. And it's the idea is, can they do the job? Does my client want to do it with them? Will they stay long enough? That's his criteria. But if you really think about it, it is only about that. Can I do the job? Do I want to do it with them? And do I want to do it for a long time or not? I mean, there's lots of other things, of course. But think about for what you're looking for. Is this something that you want to be doing? Network gravity is the idea of this. Start up as high in the tree as you can to fall down within it, but it's harder to start at the bottom and work your way up. So if I'm an Oracle DBA, I'm going to try to find a manager at 7 at 7 companies in town, I'm probably going to be hopping on LinkedIn. I'm going to be using some different tools to find who is the manager of this group. But if it's a small company, odds are is there is no manager of the group, right? There's an Oracle DBA reporting to the VP of IT. I'm emailing the VP of IT before I'm emailing the HR generalist. No disrespect to that person. Odds are the VP IT knows what they're looking for and can talk to me. They may send you down to the HR generalist, and that's fine, but I bet the HR generalist will now get back to you because the VP of IT forwarded you on to them. But if you start at the black hole, at the applicant tracking system, if you've gone through that, another cuss word missed, I'm doing good today. That 7-page really bleeping bad online thing where you have to hit save and move on to the next stage, and it takes you 42 minutes, and you pray it's saved.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just not even going to name them because there's that stupid camera going. And maybe you do have to apply it through those systems. But then go find somebody to actually talk to. So we always say, who do you know who is the hiring manager at Best Buy? It should be really the question of who do you know who knows the manager at Best Buy? Because the person might say, I don't know the person there. But do you know somebody who, it's this idea, we only ask you a yes or no question. If I ask you, who do you know any .NET developers, is a yes or no answer. It's like, who do you know who knows .NET developers? I've now got the keys to a much larger garden, right? So think about when you're asking these questions for the networking purposes. Who do you know who is hiring Java developers in St. Paul? I've come to this realization, and this is actually, I think, for most folks now because of the social media stuff. I don't need to know any more people. I need to know people better that I already know. Right? I mean, I don't need to know another 300 .NET folks. If I were to go through my database and actually have good, decent relationships with the ones that I know, and then I know that every 3 years everybody's going to turn over, divided by that by the number of months, I've got 15 candidates every month. But to answer the question earlier, I don't have the time. Right? And so the other part is that we're always trying to hunt for the next person. I always suggest to my recruiter friends we should be farming, developing, and creating relationships for folks, or with folks, but you should be doing it with your stuff too. If you're looking for a new job and you land one and you're starting on Monday, I am not suggesting that you start looking for your next new job. I'm also suggesting that you don't stop attending that user group meeting, that you don't stop talking to the folks you've been talking to. I am suggesting that you keep that part up. And I'm really obviously adamant about it. Some ways to find email addresses, particularly at big companies. I mean, I know you guys know what Boolean search strings are, so I'm not going to insult you with this. But this is the idea, though, of being able to try to find folks at a company. Once you have a name, figure out what the email configuration is. Future of the workplace. There's a guy on the West Coast named Kevin Wheeler. It's his opinion, and I agree with it. Lots of folks agree with him. It's this idea that because of the recession, right, companies have become much more efficient than they ever were before. Partly is most of it to our fault in this room. We don't need 15 people to do it now. Now we only need 6 because of the software we're creating. But here's the idea. He's saying now that the future of companies are the core is much smaller than it ever was before. The contingent workforce, as we've learned, truly is contingent. Oh, we need to lop off 200 people to meet our earnings? We will. The consulting contracting part is going to become a much larger part of our economy. So think about your career path. Think about what are you into. If you're in a full-time job, I'm not saying to you that you should go jump into the consulting world. I'm not saying that. But I'm just thinking about watch how companies are evolving. Watch how your industry or if you're in manufacturing, if you're just in software, if you're in finance. Watch how these things are changing. Please, for the love of, again, whatever you believe in, learn the business side of things. Make it so that you can be in a room with somebody like me to tell me what it is that you're actually going to do so I can pass it on to my boss. If you can't do that, at some point in time, you're probably outsourceable or offshoreable yourself. The old school days of you sitting in the corner with that stupid light over your head like a cartoon, and you got the Mountain Dew here and the Domino's over here, right from the .com days, are so freaking gone, it's scary. Learn the business side of things. Be able to sit into a meeting on a conference call, learn how to get requirements from the client or from your internal person, and to bring it back to your team. If you learn those skills, you are always going to be in demand. And I really don't usually use specific words like always. You will always be in demand if you can talk the business side of things. But it's hard to outsource that to another country. There's somebody 7 time zones away where you've got security issues. Throughout the year, make sure you're keeping track of the impact that you're making on your group, your team, your business, your department, whatever it is, so that you can articulate it, right? Every 363 days you think about it. I now want you to think about it once a quarter, once a month. Hey, what did we do this month? If you're designers, developers, you're creating websites, if your client allows it or if your company allows it, right? Keep track of the difference of here's how the logo went from here to here to here to here. If you have access to metrics and part of what you're doing is about that, we've got more people visiting because you've done some SEO stuff. Make a case for yourself. So, right, the marketing PR world, they've got their version of the brag book. They're keeping track of all their stuff. We should be doing the same thing. I don't have an answer to this question. The answer to this question is, what is your risk tolerance? Job or contract work? And it's different for it's not different for everybody. It's different for you. I've been on my own for 15 years, and I think I tweeted out the other day that it's been the best, craziest, dumbest, horrific, beautiful journey I've ever been on. And I don't know why I'm doing it again, but I am. Because it works for me. I think going to work for a big, I think coming to work at Best Buy would be awesome. I don't know that I could go work for any other large company in town, any large soulless organization in town. It's just not in my DNA to go sit and recruit and do the same thing day after day after day after day after day after day. I want to shoot myself after day. Some folks are okay with that. I'm not. Oh, I just did that one. Great, I'm ahead of the curve. Sources of hire, for those of you who are thinking about the job search part to this, this is, frankly, this is outdated. There's a new one from 10 days ago. It's the same bar graph. It's the same nearly percentages. Best 3 ways to find a job: referrals, job boards, the company career site. But think about reaching out that once you see that on the company site that they're looking for a fill in the blank, now go find a recruiter or HR person on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter and contact them. It annoys my recruiter HR friends when I tell you this, of course, because they've created these really cool systems for you to have to try to work your way through. But this doesn't change from this year to last year to the year previous. The idea of helping your friends, please be networking today. I mean, seriously, if you ever wanted to have a good day where you're around like-minded folks who are nice and easy and friendly to get along with, make sure you're sitting next to people at lunch today that you don't know and say hi. You sit by people you see every day at work and you have lunch with the same folks. They may be here today. Why would you sit with them again today too? Says the hypocrite who will probably be sitting in the corner today trying to stay away from everybody while I'm having lunch today. But this is my old business card, but here's my point to this. I think that our industry has done everything we can to take out personal relationships. But it's still, for me, the easiest way to recruit is to meet people, make a phone call, and give them my business card. I had an IT person say to me today, I feel really weird giving you my business card. Why? He goes, well, we've got all these online tools and all these things. And I said, you know what? It's like when people say that I think that the resume is going to go away because LinkedIn's going to become the tool. Yeah, what happens if they go under, get acquired? I mean, yikes, right? I'm a huge believer in business cards. I'll leave that at that. But it's the idea of we actually have to meet and talk to people. Same thing for your career maintenance, your job search, your networking. Consultants and contractors should know this, but I'll tell you, in the previous session for Toby and Ian, I was surprised how many consultants were saying, I really find it difficult to talk to people. So I made a comment of, that's great. How's your business? I can't rely on just on referrals for my work. I wish I could. Whoops. And then when you get the slides, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Questions, go. What do you want to know? Yes?
Somebody with maybe 4 or 5 years in IT looking to move up. I'll say for me, I have a 2-year degree. Should I focus on getting a bachelor's for some companies that require it, or should I focus on certifications?
Group, do you think you should get a 4-year degree? Raise your hand, yes? No, raise your hand. I'm in the no camp too. But again, 7 HR folks, 7 IT directors on a round table. Maybe we bring them whiskey instead of wine for the HR folks. And we ask that question, you're going to get 7 different answers too. If it were me, I'm more into, one of the questions that I actually had, one of somebody sent me an email, is do I need to learn one thing really well or a bunch of things not so well, right? Like, what does the breadth of my knowledge need to be? You know, jack of all or master of none? The answer is yes. Here's the problem, and I'll try to come back to your question in a second, but something else pops in my head. One of the reasons why it's hard to find a job in our town, even though y'all are in demand, is because we're creating these 17 bullet point item job descriptions that even though it's great that you have 15 and a half of them, apparently because you don't have 1.5 of them, we're not going to get back to you. The one thing to do be thinking about though is when you're seeing job descriptions and job postings. I'm really talking fast, aren't I? Holy crap. Make sure you might be needing to tailor your resume a little bit. Buzzwords, keywords in the job description might need to be in your resume or your online profiles. Something else before I come back to your question if I can. It's a little bit too about the metrics part. If you're actually monitoring your metrics or you know that you created a website X amount of time, you saved your client, you saved the project $1 million, make sure that's in your resume or your LinkedIn profile too. Right? I'm much more, I get a better idea of how good of a person may be because look, I'm simple, right? If you say to me that you saved your company $1 million last year and I'm looking at 8 folks, I'm going to call you first because the other 7 didn't. You may not be the best person, but I at least want to know how the heck you did this. Back to your question about what you should do next. I would be really concentrating on what seems to be the hottest skill sets now. How do you get to those? You also don't want to always be chasing the curve, right? There's always going to be a next thing. There's always going to be a next thing, right? I will tell you that in this town, if you're a .NET person, if you're doing Java, if you're a Ruby person, I'm guessing your phone or your email is burning up. I want you to get more experience, maybe than going back to a classroom. I think sometimes certifications, some companies still want them. I'm seeing a slow, at least what I'm seeing, a slow move away from certifications. It's really great that you took this 6-month, 6-week, 6-hour online course. But can you still really do it? And most times the answer is no. Go.
On that point, I actually work with a recruiter firm. I work at United Health Group, so a massive company.
Yeah.
And I work with their recruiting firms. And
A very great organization, not a soulless.
By the way, we're hiring. But I'll work with the recruiters, and they'll pass over people just because they don't have a 4-year degree, even though I've worked with them and I believe that their experience is qualified. Is that something that you know?
There's this huge bias. I don't have a 4-year degree, so you're not worth it. You don't want to work there. I love your company. There's a contradiction.
Whoa.
If somebody's not going to hire you because you've been doing something for 6 years, and maybe you actually are a guru or a ninja, but you know your 4-year degree, can't say what I want to say.
Yes, you can.
Screw them.
Just saying.
Find somebody else who actually wants you. And there's a lot of companies out there that will want you even though you don't have a 4-year degree. I think this is absurd. I'm a little biased and pissed off about it. But seriously, the cool thing is on the coast right now, I always like to watch what's going there, right? Like everything else, music, fashion, anything else. What's going on there finally makes its way to the Midwest whenever. I'm finally starting to see the folks on the coast not care if you have a 4-year degree. Some of the big companies, obviously, they're still real snobs about wanting somebody from an Ivy League school. Most of the startups out there don't give a crap. How good is your code? That's the definer of things. Unfortunately, here, I just don't think we're there yet.
The business journals have been putting out a lot of stuff too.
Yeah.
As far as what's the value of a bachelor's versus an associate's.
Mm-hmm.
So even now, even the business schools and the big schools of thought are, what are you getting for that extra 2 years? I mean,
Yeah.
you're really going to get your value of spending the amount of money you would to get a bachelor's versus getting an associate's and start working on it.
Before I let you ask your question, is anybody in here a college student right now? Raise your hand. Okay. I don't care what you do. Go volunteer somewhere for a nonprofit organization. Find somebody who's got like a high-profile site. They may not even know that they need you, but you could email them like, look, you need help with this thing. I can do it. Let me come in and give you 50 hours.
Go to meetup groups, start networking.
Go to meetup groups, the user groups in town, okay? But you do want the experience, though, right? So it's this idea of go find a nonprofit. Like the Nerdery's website overnight challenge, I'm a huge fan of what they do. You get that many companies in town, or that many people in town to go help the nonprofit community is awesome. But you know what? As the best I heard, right, there were 16 or 18 teams. At least 3 times that number of nonprofits asked for help.
97, actually.
I mean, yikes. Go code, go develop, and be doing screenshots, be showing how it makes a difference. But that also makes up for maybe you don't have a 4-year degree, or when you have your 4-year degree, plus you've had 3 internships and you can show code, beats the heck out of being a kid who just graduated. I just did call you a kid, sorry. But I'm 42 now, right? So I've doubled up in age. At this point, anybody half my age is a kid to me. You got a question?
What's a reasonable amount of time you should be at a job minimum before you look for that?
Oh, the job hopping question. I'm conflicted with this one.
In the coast, it's every day.
You know, as soon as you feel like you're not getting anything else out of it.
So the problem is then you start having, and I'm seeing tech CEOs do this both at the startup stage and at the high level. If you're jumping 2 years is like a minimum, I think. But I'm seeing folks now doing it every 8, 10, 16 months. In that case, you might as well just call yourself a consultant. Right? I mean, at least pretend. Because, you know, if you're jumping less, 2 years really is a minimum. If you can go 3 would be preferred, I would suggest. I also don't think you want to be somewhere for 7 anymore. Because now I'm like, well, how stale are you? And I hate to say that. I mean, we're making judgments about folks that I don't know. But if I do see that someone's been at a company for 7 years as a senior something, but if you've gone from developer to lead to architect, okay, different ballgame, right? But if you've just been, that sounds harsh, if you have just been a whatever for 5 years, but you know what? Sometimes it's like baseball too. You don't always need to have the all-star guy. If I've got someone who can just sit down and code and I can put them, and lady, sorry, if I could just put someone in the corner and let them code, that's okay too. I don't want to make it seem like you should always be jumping or that you shouldn't move, because you're right though. If you're getting stale, if your company's getting stale, it's really creepy. There's a guy in the, I'm going to wave to the guy in the, oh, I know who it is. Somebody was like taking a photo. You've got to manage your career path. But don't make it look like you're just completely jumping around, because then it's going to turn folks off. Questions?
What's the hardest skill sets you're having? Like, what's the hardest job you're having filling?
Hardest time filling anything right now? I almost would just say everything. I mean, I don't mean to be flip about it, but it really is kind of true. I'm just whizzing back through this. Don't even bother, so someone can take a photo of me before we get out of here.
Why is that? They're no good people, or what?
No, I think that companies are struggling with what they think they need or want. You guys suck at marketing yourselves. There just is this demand now, right? I mean, so the state of Minnesota will say the unemployment rate in Minnesota is less than 2%. And I call it full employment, which is to say, for the most part, if you're an able-bodied person who can code or do something in IT, unless you're in transition or maybe your skill set has waned a little bit, you have a job. And so then now you have all these other jobs out there that are getting unfilled. So even network admins now are back in hot demand again. Because again, a lot of folks stopped being a network admin when the recession happened because they were some of the folks that got let go first. Right? We can automate a lot of these things now. Oh, crap.
Salaries.
Do me a favor, Derek. Take a photo. We're going to just pretend like, you know.
You're saying something insightful for once.
Point.
Take that one.
Oh, I got you one.
Smile.
Cuss without
Smile. Come on.
One more.
Don't blink.
Open your
All right,
mouth.
buddy. There you go.
Okay, hold on, because now you got to do one more so I can put it on Instagram. Wait, what's your question?
I just said it seems like some of the companies, they're not really keeping up with the market demands as far as salaries are concerned too.
Okay, they're behind, right? Because again, the issue is, and then we'll have to stop here, right?
Yes.
So the idea is this. A lot of companies haven't increased their salaries since the recession. Now they're behind the curve.
Yeah.
Because now not only do they have to compete for new folks, but now they've got to raise the salary of everybody else. So they're not raising their salaries. And so there is this huge disparity right now. Hourly rates are all across the board.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. I don't have a good answer on that. It just is.
Yeah.
You guys, I know it's not a lot of time. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, send me an email. Give me a couple days to get back to you, and thanks.